What if the one thing you didn't say changed everything? What if that single sentence, left in silence, was the very reason she's not here anymore? This isn't just another sad story. This is the kind of letter you find too late, the kind that was never meant to be read by anyone, but ended up being written because someone stayed quiet when it mattered most. Tonight, we're going deep into a story that feels like a mirror, one that will pull memories from places you thought were buried. A story built on silence, on the weight of words that were never spoken. This isn't fiction. It's emotional truth, raw and unfiltered, the kind that hits you like a wave, because maybe, just maybe, you've lived a version of it too. She waited that night, hours, with a heart full of hope and eyes that kept staring at the door, imagining it would open, that he would come back, that he would say something, anything, a sorry, a stay, a confession. But the door didn't move, the phone didn't ring, and the only thing louder than her thoughts was the silence between them. This is more than a story. It's a revelation, one of those emotional letters that don't just tell you something, they show you everything. Because inside this letter, written on a night where everything fell apart, are words that hold regret, longing, grief, and love that never had a chance to speak. These are the kind of stories YouTube was made for. Not to entertain, but to awaken. Stories where missed moments turn into emotional scars, where the almosts and what-ifs echo for years. You know that kind of pain, when the apology was never said, when the goodbye never came, when you whispered something in your head, but never said it out loud. That's the story we're about to open. And before we go any further, ask yourself something real. Is there someone you should have spoken to? Is there something you still haven't said? Because as we unfold this unsent letter, full of pain, honesty, and everything he should have said but didn't, maybe you'll realize this video isn't just about them. Maybe it's also about you. Let's begin. If there's ever been a moment in your life where you regretted not saying something, leave a comment below that simply says, "I still think about it." Because this story, it might sound like someone else's, but it could be yours too. Brief pause. Soft, emotional music swells. And if you feel something while watching, if even a single line hits home, share this. Someone out there might be waiting to hear exactly what you didn't say. It was winter, that kind of night where the cold sinks into your skin and settles in your bones, the kind of night where even the walls seem to shiver with the weight of everything left unsaid. Outside, the rain wasn't just falling, it was pouring, hitting the glass like the sky was trying to speak the words he never could. Inside that small room, dimly lit by the soft glow of a single lamp, she sat alone at the table. Her hands rested on a folded napkin, her eyes locked on the front door like she could will it to open. Like maybe, just maybe, he'd walk in and finally say what had been hanging between them for months. Years, even. That night wasn't ordinary. It was their last chance. The night of goodbye that never got spoken aloud. A night where every tick of the clock screamed louder than any argument ever could. She wasn't looking for a speech, just a sign, a sentence, a word. But he didn't show up. And her phone, God, how many times did she check it? Vibrated once, twice, but it was never his name on the screen. Just that silence again. That terrible, echoing silence. She had rehearsed her lines in her head all day. She had played every version of the conversation over and over. The last conversation. The one where she could ask, "Why did you change?" The one where she could say, "I'm still here." But how do you have a last conversation with someone who never shows up for it? And in that silence, in that space where love used to live, something inside her broke. Because it wasn't just about him not coming. It was about everything he didn't say along the way. The missed "I love yous," the unspoken apologies, the cold distance that became routine, the way he used to look at her, and then stopped. She wasn't angry, not anymore. She was just empty. That was the night she realized silence isn't neutral. It says things. Sometimes silence says, "I don't care enough to fight for this." And that night, it screamed, loud. And what hurt more than anything wasn't the absence of his body. It was the absence of his words, the absence of the truth, the absence of the closure she begged for without ever saying a word. She wrote the letter that same night, not because she thought he'd ever read it, but because her heart couldn't carry it all anymore. A letter full of emotion, regret, confusion, pain. A letter she never meant to send and maybe never will. But it's here, and now you're about to hear it. And maybe while you listen, part of you will remember your own moment like this, your own night of goodbye that never got its words. Maybe you were her. Maybe you were him. Maybe you're still sitting at that table in your own life, waiting for someone who may never walk through the door. But what if the letter you're about to hear sounds too familiar? Let's keep going. He had the words. That's what makes this so hard to talk about. He had the words. He had practiced them over and over, driving through the city streets that night with his hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than they needed to. The rain on his windshield blurred everything ahead, but the real fog was in his mind. I miss you. That was supposed to be the opening. Short, honest. The kind of truth that doesn't need to be dressed up, just spoken, just delivered before it turned into another regret. I messed up. That was going to come next. Not a long explanation, just an acknowledgement, a chance to make space for healing. And then finally, please stay. The line that would have opened a door, maybe even saved what was left of them, but none of it came out. He drove past her street twice, sat outside for almost 10 minutes, then left. He didn't knock. He didn't call. The fear spoke louder than his love, and that's what silence does. It tricks you. It whispers lies like, you're too late. You don't matter anymore. You'll mess it up again. So he let fear win. And on the other side of that fear, she sat alone, watching the rain and listening to every sound, hoping one of them would be him, hoping, for just one more time, that he'd show up and say the one thing that could have saved them. Just one sentence, just one truth. But when he didn't come, when the silence confirmed everything her heart had been dreading, she reached for a pen. That's how this emotional letter began. Not from peace, not from clarity, but from the quiet aftermath of everything he never said. A letter that should have never needed to exist. A letter soaked in unspoken pain. A letter written by someone who still loved, but no longer believed she was loved back. That's the kind of heartbreak no one prepares you for. It wasn't a breakup letter. It was a goodbye that never got a voice. A surrender, written in ink, because speaking to him felt like screaming into a void. You'll hear the letter soon, word for word. And when you do, you'll feel it. Not just her pain, but your own. Because somewhere in your life, maybe not long ago, maybe years back, there was someone you should have spoken to. Someone you let walk away, or someone who let you go, all because neither of you could say what needed to be said. You don't forget that. It lives with you, in quiet moments, in dreams, in songs you used to love together. That's the price of unspoken words. It haunts. It lingers. It rewrites memories with questions you'll never get answered. So before we read the letter, ask yourself this. What words are you still holding back? And who are you waiting to say them to? Because if this story echoes even a little in your heart, maybe it's time to stop being silent. Maybe someone out there is still listening. And if you feel like you owe someone a sentence, a call, a truth, don't keep it locked inside. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes healing doesn't come from forgetting. It begins when we finally stop holding back. And now, with your permission, we're going to open the letter. The one she wrote when the silence became too heavy to carry alone. This isn't a letter of blame. It's not a cry for attention or a final punch thrown in anger. No, this is a letter of release. A letter of raw truth, built from all the moments she kept quiet, all the questions she asked herself in the dark, and all the hope that slowly withered as she waited for him to show up and speak what needed to be spoken. It's not pretty, it's not polished, but it is honest, and that's what makes it so powerful. Before we begin, I want you to really listen, not just with your ears, but with every memory that still lives inside you. Because as these words unfold, you might hear something you once wished someone had said to you, or worse, something you wish you had said to someone else before it was too late. The letter begins like this. You don't know, but I was ready to stay. I was scared, yes. Hurt, yes. But still here, still yours. I just needed you to look me in the eyes and tell me that you wanted to fight for us, even if you didn't have all the answers, even if you weren't sure how to fix what broke. I needed something real. I needed one truth. But instead, you gave me silence. You walked away with your hands in your pockets and your words buried in your throat, and you left me with the weight of everything we never said. She wrote those words between sobs, each sentence cutting through her like glass. Because silence is never neutral, remember? It's a decision, a choice. And on that night, he chose to say nothing, so she chose to say everything, on paper. And now, we're here, reading the aftermath. I reread our messages, she continues, trying to find a moment where it all started to fade, where your replies got shorter, where your voice on the phone turned distant. I remember the way you used to whisper goodnight, and how suddenly it stopped sounding like love and started sounding like goodbye. I kept telling myself it was in my head, that you were just tired, that you'd come around, but you never did. And I waited. God, I waited. This is not just a story. It's a reminder of what happens when we let our fear speak louder than our feelings. When we let pride build walls instead of building bridges. When we assume there's more time, and then time runs out. The letter continues. Do you know what hurts the most? It's not that you left. It's that I still don't know if you ever really wanted to stay. I still don't know if you ever loved me the way I loved you. And maybe I'll never know, because you never said a word. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is living this story. Someone is sitting alone, writing a letter that was never meant to be sent, whispering truths into the void. And maybe, just maybe, as we read her final lines, someone watching this will decide that their silence ends here, that their story won't have to be written in pain and unsent pages. So stay with me. There's more to read, and what comes next might just change the way you see everything. She's gone now. Maybe she moved to a different city. Maybe she stopped answering messages. Maybe she's still around, just not the same. Sometimes people leave in ways that don't make a sound. They disappear emotionally long before they're gone physically. And in her case, she left carrying the echo of everything that was never said. But what she left behind, what remains, is this letter, folded, tear-stained, tucked away in a drawer, or maybe buried in an old notebook written late at night when she finally stopped waiting for him to say something. But what if, and really think about this, what if this letter was never really meant for him? What if it was meant for anyone who's ever stayed silent too long? For anyone who's let someone walk away without a final word, without a fight, without that one conversation that could have changed everything? Maybe, just maybe, this letter is for you. Because the truth is, most of us carry a version of this story. Maybe you were the one waiting, hoping someone would fight for you, say your name out loud, tell you not to leave. Or maybe you were the one who froze, who didn't know how to speak, who let the moment pass because fear felt safer than vulnerability. And now, here you are, watching this, feeling something twist in your chest, not just because of her words, but because of your own memories, your own night, your own silence. She wrote that letter not to blame, but to breathe, to get the weight out of her chest. Because silence has a weight, and if we carry it too long, it turns into regret. And regret is heavy. It follows you into your next relationship, into your sleepless nights, into that song you can't listen to anymore because it sounds too much like goodbye, into the face of someone new where you keep searching for someone old. But here's the thing, you still have time. That's the part of this story that can still be rewritten. The letter was hers. But your ending? That's still unwritten. The person you haven't spoken to yet, maybe they're still waiting. The apology you never sent, maybe it's not too late. The feeling you buried, maybe it still has a voice. And maybe that's why this video found you now. Not earlier, not later. Now, when you're finally ready to stop pretending it didn't matter. When you're brave enough to open your own version of that letter, whether you send it or not. Because writing it, saying it, feeling it, that's what sets you free. And listen, if this story touched something in you, if you felt even a flicker of your own truth between her lines, don't leave this video without making a choice. Say something, not just to the person you've been thinking about, but here, with us, with this community, because you're not the only one who's ever stayed quiet for too long. Type in the comments, "I still have time," or if you're really ready to release something, "This letter could have been mine." Your words, even typed into a comment box, might be the beginning of something healing, not just for you, but for someone else reading. And if you made it here, to the end of this story, I know one thing for sure. Your heart is ready for more. In the next episode, you'll meet someone else. Someone who also stayed silent until it was too late. She discovered the truth when it was already too late. The story of a daughter, a secret, and the kind of revelation that reshapes everything she thought she knew about love and forgiveness. So stay with us, subscribe, turn on the bell, because next time, the words come too late. But today, right now, you still have time. Now it's your turn. If this story stirred something in your heart, leave a comment. If it echoed even a piece of your truth, hit the like button. If you thought of someone while listening, send this to them. Don't wait. And if you too carry an unsent letter inside you, subscribe to this channel, because maybe, just maybe, the next letter we read will be yours.